Good evening, everybody. If you're joining us, hopefully you are. I can see people coming into the training room. Please do say hi. There is a chat box function. So please do write your name and say hi so we know who we are talking to this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nathan and I'm one of the teacher trainers at Macmillan in MENA. And I'm joined this evening by my colleague Ola, one of the other trainers who's going to be conducting part of this session. Ola, you can say hi if you wish.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Hello,
Hopefully
English teachers.
Hopefully everybody can see us on the screen and can hear us loud and clear. Please let us know that you can hear us. I can see people writing their names. Excellent, Mohammed. Perfect. Everyone's saying hi. Alia, it's really lovely to see you all this evening on a Sunday. I'm in Dubai, so it's 6 p.m. for me, but I think pretty much for everybody else in the room, it's around 4.
Yeah.
So
it's 4 on a really windy day, and we're having a sandstorm today. How are you guys doing in this weather?
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't disrupt anybody's access to the training today. Okay, so today's training is improving student outcomes. We're going to be looking at objectives, outcomes, getting the most out of our students whilst using the Macmillan coursebook Shine. So while we're waiting for everybody else to come in, if you'd like to also put in the chat box any questions that you have, either questions ahead of the training or as you're watching throughout the training for the next hour or so, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A function or in the chat box, whichever you find easiest. And we will keep an eye out for those questions and we will answer them along the way. Ola, should we start or would we like to do anything else at the beginning while we're waiting for a few more people to come? We're looking for some people. I'm looking for a particular name. I can see a couple of people with their hands up. I see Azhar. If you have a few more people, if you've got your hand up, if it's a question, can you write it into the chat box? There's 3 people. I know sometimes people don't mean to put the hand up. They want to ask a question or write something and it pops up automatically. But if you've got a question, please write it in the chat box if you're on your phone. Or if one of these people, I can see 3 people, Ahmed and Rahab as well. If you want to say something, I can actually open your microphone. So just write mic, yes, or something like this in the chat box, and then I will open up your mic if it's not a mistake. Let's give them a second. I know some people might be on their phone watching, so sometimes it takes a moment to...
Oh, there's a mic comment.
Mike, okay, yeah, Ahmed, I will open you up. Here you go, allowed to talk. Hi, Ahmed.
Hello, Ahmed.
Hello, hello everyone.
Hello.
Hello. For a couple of seconds, please. I talked to you about your email about your suggestions or my suggestions about the Shine curriculum, and unfortunately, I missed copying your email. So if you please, if you can do it again, please. I can copy it at once.
Of course, yep. I will put it in the chat box. Don't worry about that. Don't worry.
Thank you.
I can do that. No problem. Thank you, Ahmed. All right. I'll put his hand down. There you go. Okay, perfect. Did the other guys say anything? I'm not sure if they did or not. No, it might have just been a mistype. Okay, cool. I think a lot of people are already in the room and probably waiting for us to get started. So, Ola, I will pass over to you to begin, and I will keep an eye on the chat box. I will also put my own thoughts, my own comments as well in the chat box to get the conversation moving. We want to turn this into a workshop as much as possible. Rahab, it doesn't matter. The previous lecture was only a trial session to make sure that the Zoom functions were working. So there wasn't any content on Thursday. You didn't miss anything. So don't worry, the content is today. So we're glad to have you with us now, and you can just sit back and enjoy the content from today. Mona, we'll pick up a conversation with you about that after the session. We need to take down Mona's name. I'll make a note. Okay, yep. Perfect. If anyone else has any questions, I will keep track of the chat box, and I will also put my ideas, experiences, ideas, things like this in the chat box as well for people. Ola, best of luck. I will see you in a short while. If you have any questions or you want, if you want me, let me know. I'm here in the background.
Yep. Thank you, Nathan. We actually have a couple of very interesting questions. One of them, is the session going to be recorded? And the answer is yes. And this recording is going to be available for everyone, hopefully. So that's that. And there's a question actually that is the core of the training. What are the objectives of this course? And this is exactly what we're going to talk about this evening. How actually Shine can help you improve the students' outcomes. Why is the course designed the way it is? And what are the objectives behind the activities that are in it? And let's start with one fun activity. And Nathan, I apologize in advance, but I found this on the internet, and I'm going to need you to tell us if this is actually true. So when I found this actually some time ago on Facebook, and it's about British expressions, or what British say and what they mean by them, what British people say and what they mean by them. And I don't know if you can see this list clearly, but the first one is, I hear what you say. And when most of us hear this phrase, we think it means, oh, this other person accepts my point of view. The other one is, with the greatest respect. And we hear that as, well, this person's listening to me, and so on. Actually, I'm going to ask you, Nathan, to come back and talk to us about this first one. Is it true that I hear what you say actually means that the other person accepts my point of view?
Yeah, I'm back. I hear what you say. Yeah, it's not so bad, I don't think. I hear what you say. I don't know. I can't say I say that phrase very often, to be honest.
Okay.
I hear that expression in work meetings a lot. Okay, so I hear what you're saying, and it's almost like, yes, I'm listening to you. I'm thinking about your point of view, and a reply to that with my point of view. So it's like a polite way of telling somebody that you're listening to them.
Well, actually here it says, well, you're going to tell us if this is correct or not. Here it says that what you actually mean would be, I disagree and do not want to discuss it further. Yeah, it's it was hilarious actually. And the other one is when a British person says, very interesting. What would they mean by that? Would it mean that you are impressed if you say, oh, well, this is very interesting? Would it mean that you're impressed?
No, probably
or
not. No.
This is clearly nonsense.
Yeah.
Okay, so they got this one right. What about, could we consider some other options? And we would see that here that as, well, this person has not yet decided, while according to this website, it says, well, I don't like your idea.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's quite that severe, but I would say, I said, could we consider some other options? I'm politely saying, we can do better than this.
Yeah. Well, actually, I get, this is super polite, by the way, super polite expressions that don't really mean what they, and some of these are really hilarious. So I'm going to leave you with some of them. I almost agree means I don't agree at all. I was a bit disappointed that it means I am annoyed that. So actually, this made me laugh a lot, and it made me also think about language and communication, and to what extent language goes in expressing thoughts and feelings, and how we go beyond politeness to really read behind these words and behind these lines. It's really interesting, actually. Languages are really interesting, especially the English language. And every nation that speaks English, they can mean different things when they say the same words or the same sentences. And communication actually is the core of our sessions today. And this is exactly what we want to improve our students' outcome is their ability to communicate. And not really in this manner. This was just a fun way to start the session. But let's explore what we actually mean by improving students' outcome and how Shine can help you do that. So we are all English teachers. What is English? So English is it's a language. And what is a language? What do we mean by language? And why do we study it? So if we look at basic dictionary definitions of a language, this is the Macmillan Dictionary definition, and it says that it's a method of human communication using spoken or written words. And if we look at other definitions, I know everyone knows what a language is, but the topic itself has been really interesting for me. What is language all about, and what exactly do we want our students to achieve? So here are other definitions that all revolve around 3 words. Number 1, it's human, strictly exclusive to humans. No one else has languages. And it's a means of communication using spoken or written words. And communication comes a lot, to the extent that I was actually curious on what dictionaries said about communication. What is communication? Most of our students, actually, when we ask them about communication, they think it's about speaking, listening, dialogues, conversation. Well, communication goes a little bit beyond that. It extends to reading and writing also, because it's a way of exchanging ideas, feelings, and it's a way of creating meaning and creating messages and creating signs and creating everything that we as humans want to share. So it's not strictly about speaking, it's about all the other skills. They all revolve around communication, and it's all focused on meaning. So my question for you guys is, what is the first and most important thing we need for communication? What is it in one word? Type in the chat box, please. So I'm going to look at the chat box. Anything coming in? Ahmed says the message. Well, thank you very much, Ahmed. You are spot on. Okay. For some reason, my mouse just... Okay. Exactly. So the first thing that we need to communicate is not the tool, but it's a message itself. It's an opinion, it's an experience, an idea, a joke, a feeling. I want to communicate science, facts, opinions, a story, something that happened to me, something that I really want to share with other people. Well, if we don't have that, then actually we don't have anything. Can you picture yourself holding the phone and typing a message to a friend, saying absolute correct English and actually saying nothing? Well, you are saying, for example, a noun is blah, blah, blah. What is your friend? How's your friend going to react? You're not communicating anything, although you're using the proper language. And actually, can we help our students memorize less and practice more? I have seen this actually with teenage students. They find it easier to study paragraphs and study words and study answers, memorize reading texts in order if the information comes in the exam, they know the right answer. So language becomes more of a subject to study rather than a language to practice. So how do we help them memorize less and practice more? Can we do that? Is it even possible with the very little amount of time that we have, large classes, pretty low entrance level as well? Students have had no exposure to English, very little exposure to English in the primary years. How can we help them do that? Is it even possible? Let's start with the favorite, most loved topic in English, which is grammar. So how many of your students actually like grammar or like to study grammar? I know that most of our students see grammar as a burden because it's almost like math. So many rules they need to apply, and the exam can be tricky, and they want to get it right. So many tenses. How do I compose this tense? How do I find the keywords for this structure? How do I get it right? How do I get the spelling right? How do I get the structure right? How do I get the form right? And they forget the most important thing about grammar is, why exactly are we teaching grammar? Why are we studying grammar in the first place? Oh. Nathan, can you help me with this?
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to switch the
click it on?
slide, but it's not happening. Yeah.
Okay, maybe use the keyboard instead, like the arrows or
Yeah,
space
I'm
bar.
trying to do that, but it's okay.
I think what you've done is you've clicked off of the PowerPoint slide, the
Yeah.
screen with the PowerPoint on.
Yeah, it's because I'm using a laser pointer. It's really not
Hold on one second.
helping. So I'm getting rid of that. Yeah, me and my challenged technology abilities. Forgive me for that, everyone. This is the price we pay for not being millennials. So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of learning grammar or teaching grammar? And do students enjoy these grammar lessons? What are our expectations actually from students in terms of grammar outcomes? Would you say that they are too low or too high? What do we expect from them? We expect them to use this grammar. We expect them to learn this grammar, to solve the most complicated worksheets. And I would say they are too high in areas and too low in other areas. We can expect more from our students in terms of using the grammar, and we don't actually have to expect them to be grammar geniuses or work out complex sentence analysis in order to become better in using this grammar. So let's try an activity together actually. And in this game, I used my amazing Photoshop skills. So can you see picture number 1? This guy over there. What do you think he's doing? Number 1. Can you type in the chat box, please? What is number 1 doing? Pulling a rope, maybe, yes. He's trying to hit a ball, yes. He's playing hockey, he's skiing. Okay, great. So what do you think number 2 is doing? Can you use a complete sentence, please? Number 2, what's he doing? He's playing hockey, he's playing, I think it's, he's playing basketball. Yes, there they come. He's playing basketball. He's going to catch a ball. He's running, he's playing basketball. So yes, well, there's unanimous opinion about number 2, actually. What about number 3? And this is a difficult one, so I'm going to give you a tip. She's a woman. What is she doing? Thinking about grammar. Yeah, maybe. That was funny. She's thinking. Well, she's a woman, guys. She's definitely not thinking. That's a joke. She could be thinking, but this particular one is not. She's thinking. Okay. What about number 5? What is number 5 doing? She's thinking what she will cook. Yeah. So number 5, he has some dirt on his shoulder. Number 5, Nathan, not number 4. She's putting eye drops. He's putting eye drops, getting eye drops. Well, actually, you guys did really well. So are you ready for the truth? You were almost all of you were right about number 2. Number 1 was a bit tricky because he's actually playing tug, like Nathan said. But it did in the shadow look like he was playing hockey. Number 5, yes, she was putting eye drops, getting eye drops. Most of you got it right. And in this activity, actually, we were all trying to use the present continuous tense, but most of us were actually focused on the meaning. We're actually focused on the game, what they actually were doing. We were trying so hard to guess, and we were using the language with some prompts from me. So some of you were actually using one word because we're teachers, we're adults, we're used to communicating in one word. But I sort of prompted you, please use complete sentences, and the present continuous kept coming. You are not actually concentrating on that, you're concentrating on meaning. And this is exactly what we want to do with our students. We want to give them activities that helps them practice the grammar while completely focusing on the meaning aspect of it. And let's see how Shine can help you do that, or how it's designed to actually do that. So let's take a look at this old school of teaching grammar. So this is the traditional presentation, practice, production. Presentation happens of the rule. So the teacher comes in, they present the rule, they write some examples that have no connection, have no meaning, just examples. And then the controlled practice, the focus on form, you can add will, and then you can add you can have if conditional 1, you can add the present simple, and then you use will, and then you give them tons of worksheets, and this is the controlled and focus on form practice. And then the production. After all that, we expect the students to start using this rule and start using it in speaking and in writing, and we start some sort of production. And usually students do really well on the first 2 because they're absolute math kind skills, but then they feel stuck when we ask them to use the rules in real context and in real life. That's because they were not trained to do that. But we say that, well, they were trained, they did tons of worksheets. How come they are not using it? Well, we haven't trained them to use it. And can you tell me what is the example that our teachers very, very long ago used with us to explain the first conditional? Type it in the chat box, please. This is the example my teacher used when he tried to explain this. I remember it. And then when I became a teacher, I used it. And then when I became a teacher trainer and class observer, I saw that it was still being used. Can you guess what's the sentence that most teachers use? Type it in the chat box. Yes, amazing. Siham, yes, yes, yes. Bravo, all of you are absolutely correct. And actually, when I visited Jordan, I found that that example traveled all the way there. It's an Egyptian invention. I don't know where it came from, but everybody uses it. I saw it in Upper Egypt. I saw it in Alexandria. I saw everywhere. And even when I was a little girl, my teacher used it with me. So if you study hard, you will succeed is the classic example that all the teachers use. And for the students, what does it mean? It means it's almost like somebody coming to me and tells me, well, if you go to the gym, you will lose weight. This absolutely is not something that I want to hear or want to think about. Yes, everybody knows that if you study hard, you will succeed. But how does it reflect on how they feel or how they think? Or is it even a fun example? That was just a joke to reflect on old methods of teaching. And let's see how the thing is presented differently in China. And we all know that this lesson about superstitions around the world, actually this sort of content would be very interesting for our students because probably they have never heard of this. And even the Egyptian superstitions, they wouldn't have heard of that. So again, Nathan, can you tell us if this superstition is correct in Britain? So if you walk under a ladder, something bad will happen?
Yes, that is a superstition in the UK.
Oh, so you're familiar with that?
Yeah.
If someone breaks a mirror, they 7 years of bad luck. Oh, wow. 7 years.
Yeah. Can you imagine how many mirrors I've broken over the years?
Yeah, and you ended up super actually. You're you're great. So they are superstitious.
That kind of makes sense, right? If you walk under a ladder, something bad will happen. I think that's to show you that you shouldn't walk under a ladder because if somebody's up the ladder with like a tin of paint or they're washing windows, they could drop what they're holding on you, right? So I don't really get the picture.
Interesting, actually. Do you think this is how it started?
I think so, yeah. Like, don't go under the ladder because if somebody drops something, it will land on your head.
Yeah.
The mirror one, I'm not sure about the mirror. Yeah, I'm not sure where the 7 years bad luck. I know that 7 is like one of these like special numbers, right? So
I think we have a similar superstition about the mirror, but it's not exactly the same. I think if you break a mirror, you will get unlucky somehow, but it's not like 7 years of bad luck. So yeah, and there are some other superstitions. We actually used to have a superstition about a couple of trees in the university where I studied. So there were trees that branched out like this, and if you passed between them, you will fade.
Oh, okay.
So we had our own special one back in college. So it's actually fun to talk about these. Yeah, no one believes in these anyway, but it's a fun thing to discuss. And the students in this case are going to be focused on the meaning, are going to be focused on this nonsense that people say. It is not true, but some people believe that. And why it uses the first conditional is that someone actually believes that it's true. They are not true, of course, students know that, but they are going to have a good laugh about them. And this leads us to how inductive grammar works and how communicative grammar works. So presentation, it starts with presentation, but in slightly different ways. So it starts with exposure to the language and by noticing the pattern. And all these come with interesting messages while the students are focused on meaning and not on form. So the student will notice the structure, engage with the language, engage with this content, and engage with the meaning. and they are focused on the meaning. And at this point, we can actually use comprehension activities focused on the facts that are in the example without asking or mentioning the grammar just yet, to enable the students to engage with the language and actually start saying it without knowing. An example of that is if I show you this picture and I say the boy is kicking the ball. So I'm using the present continuous, which is a correct form, but the meaning is wrong. And I ask the students to put right or wrong, and they would put wrong. This is a comprehension activity which helps students engage with present continuous without actually realizing it. They are focused on meaning. The way Shine does it is, well, it gives them a listening activity. We haven't studied if conditional yet, we haven't studied form yet, but we're giving them a comprehension listening activity to complete the second half of the sentences based on what they listen. So this is basically an engagement activity. The aim is not for them to memorize the superstitions or to know more about them. It's actually to engage them with the content. After that comes another activity. Now cover the text and tell each other the superstition for each picture. Now we are coming to a second phase where the students are actually producing this language. How can they produce this language when they haven't even started it yet? Exactly the same way we did with the picture game activity. We are prompting them. We are encouraging them to use as many of it as they can, and they are actually still focused on the meaning. So this is a drill and a guided practice, but it's not like traditional guided practice activities. It's more the students are repeating the structure, supported by the teacher. And here, if the students say it wrongly, the teacher can prompt them, but shifting them back to meaning. So here, the students will produce the language with support, discover the form on their own. They kind of figure out the pattern by now, by repetition. And they develop a language habit and still focus on meaning. After that comes the study. Then, only then, we give them a temporary focus on form and structure. And we say temporary because this is not our main goal. Our main goal is the communication bit. So we give them the study that they need. We tell them that how the structure is composed. We give them activities. We give them worksheets. We give them everything that they need in order to practice the structure and be able to produce it correctly. Only after they have engaged with it in a meaningful way. After that comes the real production, and let's call it communication now. And it can be spoken and it can be written, and it must have independent language manipulation, meaning that the students must choose the language themselves and they must have a genuine message to express. So they use the structure independently and they express a genuine message and they choose the language themselves. So here we have some activities that, well, what superstitions are there in your country? Think about food, birds, weddings, animals. These are real messages that they will have heard. Maybe they haven't heard anything. Maybe they heard their parents talk about it. Maybe they talk about the number 13. Well, everybody does that. Here, the second one is about another activity. This is a fun one. Well, be a fortune teller. Tell your friend what is going to happen. And now, oops, here comes our famous example. If I work harder, I'll pass the exam. And while this is very close to the stereotypical example that we talked about, we can make
I
it
think
more
you might have
fun.
frozen.
Oh.
Have you frozen or have I frozen?
Nathan, can you hear me? Can you hear me, anyone?
Hello? Ola?
Nathan, I think you have frozen because I'm receiving messages that people can hear me.
Ah, okay. You can hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, we're back. Sorry, everybody. I don't know whether or not something happened, but it must have been it was my end, not your end, right?
I don't know. It seems like the audience were able to hear me. I don't know.
Okay.
Well,
You
anyway,
froze for
it's
me.
over. It's
Okay, no
whatever
worries.
it
Sorry.
was. It's over. So moving on. A very nice way in the production stage is actually to encourage students to maybe compose their own poems, and they don't need to rhyme or anything. Students at this age are very emotional. They are all full of, turmoil going on in their heads and in their souls. They respond to very, very deeply emotional stuff. And I found actually this poem, it's titled If I Die, and I found really many, many versions of it. It was written with when, it was written with if, it was written without if or when. So I found really many versions of it on the internet, but I find that this type of thing would really affect the students and help them use the language better. So it goes very, really emotional. If I die, your tears will flow, but I won't know. Cry for me now instead. If I die, you will send flowers, but I won't see. Send them now instead. So it's really emotional, very deep, and students do respond to stuff like that. If you look at the other one, this was actually composed by a little child, and it's really impressive if you think about it. So it says, I can see a bird in the sky. I can see a plane too. The bird and the plane can fly high, but the plane cannot sing. I really loved this one, and I felt that it had really deep meanings about nature and about the beauty of God's creatures. And no matter how big man-made things are, they will never be like natural creatures. So this is one way to encourage students to come up with similar language, similar poems. This one I found hilarious, and I think it happened in the COVID time. So it's a very simple, like all of them have very similar grammatical structure. They are almost grammatical poems. So I didn't go camping, I didn't go hiking, I didn't go fishing, I didn't go biking, I didn't go play. And it goes all the way down to, but boy, I played plenty of my Minecraft this summer. So if we actually ask the students to come up with things that they didn't do last summer, start writing sentences about things that they said they would do but they didn't do. In my case, of course, it would be, well, I didn't go to the gym. I didn't. So yeah, you can imagine how things went. So actually, writing grammar poems is a very effective way for students to practice the structure in a meaningful way, and you can guarantee that they're going to share something meaningful, and they're really easy to write. So give it a try and let us know. Here it says, speak and write. What were you doing at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. last night? And a nice activity for this is actually two truths and a lie. So it's a nice variation of this activity where students can take turns composing two true sentences and one sentence that is not true. Writing a lie makes sure that the other two sentences are genuine and true, which is our purpose. We want them to write something true about themselves. We want a genuine message that is not a copy, that is not something that they heard, something that they imagined. We want something that actually happened. And yeah, these games can be so much fun in the classroom where the rest of the students can guess which one is the lie. And the trickier it is, the more fun it becomes for the students. So I guess the purpose here is to encourage genuine messages using grammar. And always in the book, you're going to find that the productive activity at the end of every grammar lesson, it asks the students to come up with a genuine message, a personal message that is all about themselves, all about what they're doing, all about what they're thinking. And we can go ahead and extend these as much as we can. We can find things that are more relevant to their feelings, their experiences. As long as the messages are genuine and real, we're going to make sure that this grammar is used. Well, this sequence of lessons that we have seen so far has reading, has listening, has speaking, and has writing, but it all revolves around grammar. And this is as a type of integrated skills model that gives you reading and listening and speaking as tools to reinforce language. Because yes, it is important to learn grammar, but it's really important to learn it in a communicative way and in a genuine, meaningful way. And this is exactly why the book is designed like that. So the tip is definitely bring the language to life. Always express feelings and express emotions. Talk about your own emotions. Don't be afraid to share them with your students. As much as you can, encourage real expression of language inside the classroom and maybe outside the classroom. And the power of habit is that in every type of class, create a routine of activities so you don't have to make a decision for every lesson. Well, actually, the power of habit is another story and another training session and another topic. But as a teacher, I used to teach for so many years, and what I discovered is it's not the big changes that make the difference. It's the very small habits that we include into our classes that actually make the biggest difference. So if we keep the habit of speaking about ourselves as teachers, using the grammar, it will encourage the students to do the same. If we keep the habit of asking them to do that time and time again, use the structure, use the vocabulary, use everything that they have learned in a meaningful way, time by time, they're going to acquire this ability and use the language more effectively. Moving on to vocabulary. So vocabulary is another area of language that students tend to study a lot. And Shine has a lot of vocabulary and has really long word lists at the end of the book. And there's a reason why it has these lists. So let's take a look at the vocabulary learning outcomes. What do we want the children to acquire, or what do we want them to learn from vocabulary? So vocabulary typically refers mainly to single words, but we have a bigger concept, which is lexis. Lexis is bigger, so it refers to our, language database inside our head, and it expands to include expressions, collocations, phrasal verbs, not just single words. It's these expressions like "what on earth," "minding my own business," "funny should say that." These are treated in the brain like one words. They should definitely not be analyzed. They should be taken as chunks, and they are actually treated by our brains, by our language devices, as one word. So let's see how that works. So we have the single words that are like single Lego blocks like this, and we have two word groups that go together, which are known as collocations. And I would actually add phrasal verbs to this list, because they, at the end of the day, they are treated as one word. And other chunks of language, three or more words that can add up, but they are still treated like one set or one word that the students learn. So vocabulary or lexis is the primary tool that we need to use in order to express ourselves and in order to communicate. So how do we do that? How do we help our students acquire more vocabulary, but not in this overwhelming way of study words, study dictation, study synonyms, study antonyms, study all the words. You will never know what word will come in the exam. And it all becomes like a very big task to the students that they are not sure what to do with. So absolutely a nightmare for us as teachers, a nightmare for the students. We really need to move away from that. So the first thing we need to know is, how many words do we expect the students to learn in 1 year, in one lesson, in one unit? And are there different types of learning vocabulary? I mean, can you know a word but not use it, for example? Can you encounter a word in reading but not necessarily study it by heart? So there are two types of vocabulary in everyone, even native speakers. So we have our productive lexis. Productive lexis is what we actually use, what we say. And for each one of us, this set is slightly different. So you can remember a person with a set of words that they say, but you don't necessarily say them. And it can become so much fun to think of a certain person in terms of what words they use a lot and what words these words you might never use. But is this a problem? Is this a problem that prevents you from understanding them? The fact that they use words that you don't use? There's another type of lexis in our heads that is called receptive lexis. Receptive lexis is actually the words that we understand, we can recognize in context, we can recognize in listening, we can really understand the depth of, but we don't necessarily use them. We don't find them easily when we're trying to communicate or speak. And that's okay, that's normal. Even in our mother tongue, even when we speak Arabic, we all have this type of two type of lexis. So why do we expect our second language learners to be able to use all the words equally? So all nationalities, everyone, they have this. And receptive vocabulary and productive vocabulary are well known and they are very well defined. And this is what the graph looks like in terms of quantity. So yes, receptive lexis should be much, much bigger than productive lexis. Yes, at a point, we need to train our students to activate some of this receptive lexis, but only when they are ready to do that, only when they have enough productive words, enough active words to be able to build on them. But definitely not all at once and not all at the same level. So how do I know which words should be productive and which words should be receptive? How do we determine this sort of classification, if we wish, and thus determine the objectives for our students? So these are the vocabulary objectives, and we need to do the classification, but some of the words are just for understanding, some of the words are just actually for exposure. We won't ask the students to even stop at them and think about them. We often, if they find something like that in their reading, we often ask them to just skip ahead and try to understand the main context of the sentence. Productive, some words, they can be used orally and some words can be used in writing. So we focus again on spelling. So there are different levels even among productive and receptive words. And if you log into Macmillan Online Dictionary, you will find it in you'll find it online for free. It's open. And if we type in a word like enormous, for example, enormous is a word that is on the list in this unit. Can you see these, the color of the word? What's the color of the word? It's red. And how many stars does it have? It has 3 stars. What does this mean in this dictionary? This actually means that this is one of the most commonly used words that are used 90% of the time by native speakers of English. Enormous is a 3-star word. You will find 2-star words. You will find 1-star word. So if you are in doubt, is this word important or not, just check it in this dictionary. If you find 3 stars, then without a doubt, this word should be taught as an active word, as a productive vocabulary. Enormous at this level is one of them. If we see a word like burglary, it is from the same unit and it has only 1 star. So maybe not that important. Maybe we won't ask the students to produce it or write it or spell it or study it. Maybe it's just for understanding. Look at that. Rotten. Rotten, while we might think that rotten is a pretty common word, well, it's not that common. It's only a 1-star word. The verb scoop is in the word list of this unit also, but it's black and it doesn't have any stars in it. This means that definitely it's not a keyword for our students to actively study. So Macmillan Dictionary Online is one of the tools that you can use if you are confused about this. Also, another tool that you can use are the words that are stated in the speaking activities. If the unit is asking you to use these words in the speaking activity, then these words should be studied and should be learned. Speaking or writing activities, of course. So it's a matter of recognizing these words and what level should the students be going in depth in studying them. The idea of students creating their own notebooks and their own little dictionaries is a really good idea, by the way, because they can write definitions that make sense to them, that have a meaning for them. They can actually use L1. It's not taboo to use L1 if it will help them study these words and relate to them in a better way. The use of definitions, well, at this level, definitions should actually be tools to help the student understand the words and make sense of them rather than studying the definition itself. So a definition should be a receptive thing. So maybe in an exam, I can have a matching task where they match the word to a definition, but is it really realistic to ask them to write a definition for a word? Well, it's not the purpose of them to relate to the word and understand it. So as synonyms and antonyms, let's explore how do we give a definition to a beginner. It's definitely not going to be the dictionary definition. So these are the key ideas on how and why and when we should use definitions for vocabulary. So definitions help clarify new concepts, but they are not to be studied on their own. Definitions should contain easier words than the new word itself, or it becomes a target and not a tool. Short sentences, and their aim is to clarify the new word rather than be studied. So if we look at this word, this is a raincoat. And believe it or not, raincoat is not a very familiar concept in Egypt. because the dictionary definition of raincoat is it's waterproof and it is lightweight and it is not really designed to keep you warm. It is designed to protect you from the rain. And here in Egypt, it only rains when it's really cold. So your winter coat is the same as your raincoat. We do not have these summer raincoats. So this definition has so many unfamiliar words to the students. So they wouldn't understand the word waterproof. They wouldn't really be comfortable with it. So other ways to give them these definitions, well, it keeps your head and your clothes dry. That's simple. It is light. That's simple. It does not make you too hot. That's really simple. And you wear it when it rains. Definitely a raincoat. So this is just an example of how we need to use definitions in a way that helps students understand the words rather than target to study words. Synonyms and antonyms. Do you use synonyms and antonyms with the students in the classroom? So I'm looking at the chat box now to see if there are any questions. So you only use Scoop for ordering ice cream. Yes, Nathan. Is this dictionary dedicated to juniors? This is a dictionary for all ages, and you can use it as teachers, and you can definitely have students use it as well. It is designed for everyone. It's really super easy to use. Can we search if the words have 1 star or 3? Actually, when you search a word in this dictionary, it automatically tells you if it has 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars. And there's a very nice quiz on the dictionary website itself. You can go ahead and try it, and it will test your sense of whether the words are 3 stars, 2 stars, or 1 star words. And you will be surprised that this exercise is not easy, especially for English teachers like ourselves, because we would think that all the words are 3 stars just because we know them. But for learners, it's another story. So yes, we use synonyms, we use antonyms. Brilliant. So synonyms and antonyms are very, very good tools to help the students understand words and have a wealth of ways in expressions. But really, what is the best way to use synonyms and antonyms? Are they used with all the words the same way? So let's see some ideas around that. So if I'm teaching a new word, let's say glad is a new word. It's not a new word for us, but for our students, it might be. So when I used synonyms and antonyms to reinforce the meaning of glad, and glad is a new difficult word, let's try our best to use words that are easier than the word, because my aim is to help them understand it, you know? So I might use happy, pleased, but maybe not delighted. Maybe I wouldn't use the word delighted to define glad. It's much more difficult. But if I'm talking about an old word here, a word like angry, if my aim is to enrich the students' vocabulary and add more words to their productive lexis, here I use words that are more difficult, that might be more difficult. So we're looking for other ways to express the word angry. So maybe I can use furious, agitated. What are other words to describe angry? I can't think of any right now. Maybe when I'm angry, I will start thinking of more words. But anyway, angry here is an old word familiar with the students, and our aim is to expand their expressive abilities. So here we can give them more complicated words and more unfamiliar words. Definitely, if we're teaching a difficult word, let's not give them difficult synonyms and difficult antonyms and ask them to study all that. Synonyms and antonyms are either a way to explain a word, and in this case, they should be easier than the word, lower in level, or we give them to enrich their lexis and productive activities, and in this case, they can be more advanced and more sophisticated, if you can say that. So the power of habit. A very nice habit that I used to use with my students, and it worked really well. And I would go to the classroom and I would start writing few words, maybe from the unit, words, collocations, and chunks and expressions. And these are our target words. We need to use them as much as possible in class. And the more they are used, the more credit points the class gets. And it's not a competition between students. I like to make it like a challenge that the students are all working to achieve as a team. So I didn't have a name for this activity, but it was a very good habit, if you ask me, because the students were coming up with ways to use these words, and they would use them in conversations. I wouldn't ask them to put these words in sentences. I wouldn't ask them to just come up with any sentence. No, they need to use them in our daily conversation, maybe in the break time, maybe during the classroom, maybe when I'm giving out books. So, and it worked. It was hilarious sometimes when they tried to squeeze the words in any message that they were trying to say, but it came out really hilarious. So if you can come up with a creative name for this activity to attract your students, that would be great. I couldn't come up with one back then. It was a long time ago. Maybe it had a name back then and I just can't remember it. And actually, I would have asked you to use the chunks of this unit in Shine, but I'm not sure it's a good idea to encourage you to use these words today because it would mean, it wouldn't mean very nice things for me. So let's just skip that. So I'm going to look at the chat box again to see if there are any questions around vocabulary and grammar. Okay, I have a question here which is very interesting. How can we teach a lot of vocabulary and grammar in one course, 45 minutes? That's a really good question, and that's a very big challenge. And this is why I really don't believe in massive activities and massive changes in the classroom layout in order to come up with creative ways to teach these words. I believe in small changes and really smart activities to be done in 2 minutes, and that's it. First of all, the structure of Shine can help you go through the grammar activities in the order of the book. Now that we know how grammar lessons are structured, how they start with meaning, go to form, and go back to meaning, how they end with a productive activity, they are embedded in the unit itself. So it's not like you're doing the book and then extracting time to do the grammar. They are all there. As for vocabulary, it's really important to focus on the words that you really want the students to learn. The key words, the 3-star words that you really feel that it is important for them to learn. The other words can be receptive words, and there are many activities for receptive words that you can find and you can create worksheets for that have to do only with matching or not even gap fill. They would be like matching words or just things that you make sure that they understand the word. They don't have to produce it. This would take a lot of stress off your shoulders. This is my idea for trying to work smart and try to work in the 45-minute time that you have. I'm actually curious to hear what you think, Nathan, about this. Any ideas?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So someone was asking, how can we teach a lot of vocabulary and grammar when we only have 45 minutes? So it's about working smart, I guess. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely smart. I mean, if you're limited in time, then you're not going to be able to achieve a lot of outcomes. So, I mean, yeah, keep it simple, and have a very specific focus, as you were saying. Have a few activities, and I would try to get them learning some of the things outside of the classroom. So, you know, we're so lucky these days that, you know, they can look up the meaning of vocabulary on YouTube, and then when they come to class, giving them activities that get them to try to use it. So trying to get the productive part in the classroom and pushing the presentation and the practice part outside of the classroom, the things that they can do by themselves. So really utilize that time, that those 45 minutes are so important to you to make sure that they are working in pairs, working in groups, and giving you a chance to listen to what it is that they've been learning. That would be
a flipped classroom. Yeah, that's genius, actually, Nathan. And actually, flipped classroom is one of our favorite topics in Macmillan. In a lot of our, well, one of our major new books is based on that. So flipped classroom is basically taking the presentation out of the classroom and preserving the precious classroom time in more practice activities and meaningful activities. And well, they can Google everything and they can YouTube everything, which is pretty helpful in these times, you know. Yeah, actually, this is a great idea.
Someone was saying about the dictionary, saying that they don't have physical dictionary, these types of things. I mean, the nice thing about this Macmillan Dictionary, okay, they do need access to the internet, but if they have a phone or if they have access to the internet at home, you can ask them to do these types of activities. Here's a list of words. Go home and look them up on, you know, bookmark the dictionary on your computer at home, and go and look up the words. Come back and tell me which ones had more stars than other ones. Which ones did you not understand? We'll look at them together as a class. These types of, lots of people putting in the chat box, like preparing them before class, giving them really simple home-based activities, which just take the pressure off you a little bit. You're not standing in front of the class. Some understand the words, some don't understand the words. You can just focus on the things that the majority of students are having problems with.
Yeah, exactly. I can see you have posted the link to the dictionary, and there's an interesting comment that the students don't know how to use the dictionary. Well, dictionaries nowadays are online, and they actually, all the students need to do is type in the word and click search, and it will just search for them. It will give them the result. It's not like the old days when we used to look for words and the fun days. Now everything is search and click, search and click. So yeah, maybe it's good that they can use it, even though they are not familiar with all dictionaries. But this is interesting. Everybody's giving me synonyms for angry, and then there are very, very creative words and names for the word game. Thank you very much, guys. That's really amazing. Oh, this group has been really active on the chat box. I'm loving that. Okay, so I guess we will look at the questions after that. are we ready to move on to receptive skills? So we have covered the main building blocks, grammar and vocabulary, and we've given them time because they're the most stressful for students and the most stressful for teachers. Receptive skills, such as reading, and once upon a time, reading looked like this. Well, thank God I didn't do this when I was a teacher. I didn't paint over reading texts like that, but I have seen teachers do it, and I have even seen students do it. And it's not the purpose of a reading text, is it? The reading text, as we said in the beginning, it's all about receiving a message and really understanding what the writer is trying to communicate. This is one aspect of reading. Definitely not text analysis of this level. This level happens in linguistic classes in university, not even that. So I remember doing that in university, but definitely our students don't need to analyze each and every word in a reading text in this manner. So what do they need from a reading text? What they need is simply to understand the text type, whether it's a description, questionnaire, narration, article, dialogue, chat, comic, and the text purpose. What does the writer want to tell me? Is it persuasive or argumentative text? Is it an ad? Is someone trying to convince me to buy stuff? Is it a comparison? Is it just for entertainment? Is it a message behind the story? Is it a philosophy of some kind? So text purpose is another thing. And of course, the reading skills that help me understand what the text is all about. And some of these reading skills are skimming, scanning, predicting, identifying main idea, and supporting detail. And in a course book like Shine, designed for classes with fewer teaching hours, these skills are really compact, but they are full of fun activities and ways that the students can interact with the text without overwhelming them with a lot of tasks. So when I look at this text, it's the same unit, by the way. This text, I think this is the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And the main skill here is predicting. Simply, they're going to look at the picture, predict what the story is about, and then check their prediction. Simply that, no more. They are not supposed to remember the events of the story. They're not supposed to narrate this piece that they have written. They will narrate another thing. They will speak about another thing. They are simply asked to check if their prediction was true or not. And of course, enjoy the story and try to think how it ends. So here the reading is about checking prediction, and it is followed by a listening activity for the main story. So a part of it is reading and a part of it is listening, and the listening actually completes the story. The listening skill in this unit is exactly the same as the reading skill. So they're going to predict what happens next, and then they're going to listen to check their prediction, which goes well. This is called an integrated skill approach. So they're doing the same skill, the same sub-skill with two of the receptive skills. The aim really is, number one, enjoyment. They need to read something that is relevant to them and they can enjoy. Number two is to actually encourage curiosity, encourage them to think about what they're going to read and build this kind of interest. We need to train them to receive this message, to receive the story, and to really think about it. And the reading skills and the listening skills. Simply, this is what we need from these receptive skills. they offer exposure to the language, exposure to the grammar, exposure to the vocabulary, but we do not need to focus on them. If you remember, there was reading in the grammar lesson, and there was listening, and there was speaking, and there was writing. They were all focused on the grammar. Yes, we were focused on meaning back then, and we encouraged interaction with the text and thinking about the text. But here it is different. Here the focus should shift away from these details, and we sort of zoom out of that to understand a bigger picture and to work on bigger skills, such as skimming, scanning, predicting, and as the skills go. Some extra activities, additional activities that you can actually do is to simply give the students extracts from the reading and try to discuss with them these extracts. These extracts can be sentences, they can be paragraphs, or they can even be individual words. Well, the more vague they are and the more thought-provoking they are, the better the outcome will be from the reading. Let me give you an example, actually. So I have chosen this from the text. Well, I hope you haven't taught it yet, but well, the man went to a nearby home and opened the door with a key. So what do you think is happening here? Where do you think this man is going? Type in the chat box, please. What do you think about this sentence? His house, yes. He's a burglar, that's interesting. So how come he has a key? Remember, there is no right or wrong answer here. It could very well be a burglar with a copy key. So accept all the answers. So he's a burglar. So yes, the industry of creating fake keys is, so his house, he entered another house, he's a burglar, a house of a relative, maybe. I asked them to summarize the reading passage and write their point of view. That's amazing, that's really advanced. He's the owner, okay. Mom's house, yes, that's why he has a key. It's his mother's house. So yes, all these answers are really interesting, and it starts to build up an imaginary story inside the students' heads, actually, when they try to think about that. So another sentence would be, the girl's parents came out of their house. What girl and what parents, and why do you think they came out of their house? What do you think is happening here? Uh-oh. So he's the guard. Okay, good, maybe. Scary thing happened. The girl fell down. Yes, because of a fire, they came out. Accident. Maybe someone asked them to do that. These are all really interesting answers. There was a fire. They by force. Do you think the man who went inside got the parents out? Maybe. She's screaming, so they ran to save. Yeah, you read the text, Emel. They're going out, they're panicking, they are watched. Ooh. Okay, so the third one that I chose for you is my friend. What does this word mean to you, my friend? What does it mean to you? Do you think of a particular person that when you hear the word my friend, does it bring a positive feeling or a negative feeling? My neighbor is a friendly one, like the one indeed. Yeah, my mother, oh, He passed away. I'm so sorry to hear that. My mom, someone, a trusted person, my colleague, positive. Well, actually, what we're about to read in the text, do you think the friend here is going to be a positive one or a negative one? So after you guys have thought about these words or sentences, I don't know if you can see the screen, but when you start reading the text, when you encounter these sentences, your brain is going to create a pause or create an alert. It helps the students when they are reading to actually not go in a completely other world, not get distracted. It will create these alert points that will, this is the sentence that I read. Now that is the context. So the man who actually used the key, you guessed it, it was Mr. Hyde. And the reason why he has the key is, well, he's the same person, but because he has this dissociative personality thing, it's not really the same person, but he still has the key. And yes, the girl was screaming, so because Mr. Hyde pushed her and the parents came out, and actually the friend who Dr. Jekyll was talking about was actually Mr. Hyde. If you look at the bottom of the screen here, when I die, my house and all my money and possessions will go to my friend, Edward Hyde. Now, do you think Edward Hyde is a true friend for Dr. Jekyll? You think he really means that? He means to call him a friend? Why is he even calling him a friend? These are all points for reflection. They are two sides of one coin. They are the good and the evil, but actually Mr. Hyde is a part of him as a person. Maybe he's not the one who called him a friend. Maybe this whole message is fake and written by Mr. Hyde. Maybe Mr. Hyde sees Dr. Jekyll as a friend, but Dr. Jekyll doesn't agree. It's actually really thought-provoking, and you can do it with any text that you want. You can extract any points and have as many discussions as you may want with them. You can have these discussions the day before, and then the students will come eager to read. Actually, one of my teacher colleagues asked me, well, what if the students go ahead and read the text before I do that? Well, actually, you have encouraged them to go ahead and read the text before studying it or before taking it in class. And I can see that this can be a good thing. It can never be bad. Maybe students who do that because they want to have the right answer or they want to stand out in class, maybe they get to choose the sentences the next time. So this activity never hurts, and it really helps the students to focus on the reading. It creates these alert points and helps them focus on the events and the sequence of events in the reading text. He's not a fair friend. No, he's not. Definitely he's not. So moving on, we're about to run out of time. So moving on to productive skills, and everything that we have done so far builds to these moments. So this is a type of productive skills that we found in the grammar lesson, but the writing here is different. The writing here is to actually create a different ending of this story. And a lot of the times our students would come and activate. And let me remind you that the most important thing for the students is to have an idea to write about. We can help them with the language. We can help them choose the language. But as long as they have an idea, they are on the right track. you definitely don't want students to come up with a perfect structure that is not theirs, that they didn't come up with, that they memorized from an old paper or an old book or a model answer somewhere. That plagiarism should grant them a big zero. The idea should be theirs. So I guess the final thought for this is, what is the first thing you should evaluate when giving your students a writing task? And in a task like this, what grants the most marks? A more creative ending or better language skills with not really well thought of ending? So yes, language and structure and grammar and vocabulary are very important to enrich the writing, but they need to come up with the idea. And then maybe in a mind map, we can ask them, well, you think that this man is going to be like this. What word can we use to describe that? What tense are we going to use, do you think? So we help them try to choose the language, but they should come up with the idea. Time by time, they will be able to come up with their own sentences, even if they are simple in the beginning for not very fluent speakers or writers. But as long as they can come up with a genuine idea, this should definitely be encouraged. And the most important thing in any writing task is task achievement. Did they answer the question or not? A student can come up with a perfect piece of writing, but it's not answering the question, right? It's not the right topic. Originality of the work, the ideas need to come from their head and from their genuine ideas. And I think what we did with the grammar and with the vocabulary and with the reading will help all these ideas. It will keep them flowing, and they will be more fluent in using the correct grammar in this. Message comes first, then the choice of language. And communication is all about meaning, like we said. The more we help the students practice grammar and vocabulary in meaningful ways, the more they are going to use them in their writing and their speaking. So try to use more meaningful grammar practice, meaningful vocabulary practice. When you ask the students to put words in sentences, make sure that they use true sentences about themselves, true sentences about what they believe and what they feel and what they are convinced with. No matter how tiring this might be, if it happens once every day that they use words and structures in real messages, it will come in naturally after that to express real thoughts, and they will not be afraid to come up with thoughts because they know that they will have the language support to express them. So our question, can we help our students memorize less and practice more? And the answer is yes. And that would be it for the session today. And I think we are just 1 minute over time, I think.
1 minute under time, I think.
Over to you, Nathan.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, really nice. There's loads of things. There's so many comments. I haven't been able to keep up with them all, actually. But yeah, loads of people giving their ideas. A lot of people like the activity ideas. Yeah, lots of nice stuff. There's a question actually about
fantastic group, really,
yeah.
Really fantastic group.
There's a question about where mixed ability groups come in. I'm assuming that probably most of these teachers have mixed ability groups. So from your experience, any advice around some of these activities that you've been mentioning in terms of mixed ability?
Yeah, well, in writing, it comes, mixed abilities are the most challenging in writing tasks, right? Where they do not really have acquired the language skills yet to do that. And for that, we give them we can differentiate the process of the writing or the outcome of the writing. Maybe we can ask them to fill gaps and we give them the sentence structure to support them. Maybe we can, so when I encourage the students to come up with their own ideas, this is what I want to focus on. So as long as they come up with an idea, they can express it with words, and I can support with the structure. I can scaffold the structure until they are confident enough to use it. So maybe for less able children or students, these are teenagers, we can create these worksheets that are differentiated, where we are not asking the same students to do the same thing at the same time, but we are asking for the same thing. We're asking about the message, and we're asking them about an idea, to create an idea. Time by time, they will be able to gradually be more independent in using the structure. Differentiation can also happen in reading, where we can divide the text into into separate chunks or parts where they cannot be overwhelmed with a big text. So instead of asking this group of students to read the whole text, I can cover parts of it and have them concentrate on a smaller kind of text. For also students who are not really confident in reading, they can play the audio while they read. We can encourage them to do this at home before they come, so they are more familiar with the text. There are so many ways to differentiate, but the real key is to prepare beforehand and keep it really simple. You don't want to overwhelm yourself with so many activities, I guess. These are my thoughts.
Yep, they're perfect ideas. Yeah, simplify it. Think about, I guess it's being conscious, right? Looking at the activity and thinking, how hard is this going to be for them? For some, how do I make it a little bit easier? Maybe, like you said, giving them parts of the sentence, the structure to help them, and then just seeing if they can fill in the gaps with the vocabulary that we're focusing on. And then for others, you'll think this might be a little bit too easy for them. So how can I twist it to make it a little bit more challenging? Can I get them to extend their writing? Can they do a presentation on it or something like this? Yeah, nice, really nice. Okay, I think we've kind of run out of time. I don't know if there were any other questions. People have been writing in the Q&A right at the end. The recording of the session, I think we've got everybody's email addresses now, so we can send the recording out to people. That's absolutely fine.
That's good.
And
this is not the end of it, guys. You will be seeing more of us,
this
hopefully.
Is day one. Yeah, just day one.
Yeah.
This one we've already answered about how to do exercises in a short amount of time. It seems as though teachers are limited in time here. So yeah, make those outcomes very specific.
Yeah.
Very good.
And it actually gives us a lot of pointers on more activities that we can do with this group, is the limited time, and we can focus more on that, on how to achieve the best outcome possible in a short amount of time. Definitely these questions have been helpful for us to understand your needs more.
Yeah. I've just seen people have started to put their emails in the chat. You don't need to put your email in the chat, guys. We have an option when you close in the minute, it'll bring up a survey, and you can put your email there so that we can get in touch with you. I think when you signed in, it might have asked for an email as well. So we've probably got them from there. So we have your emails, don't worry. Give them to us in the survey at the end. And there's another question in the survey that asks you what you would like to see in the next session. So do fill in the survey and let us know so that we can tailor the future sessions according to your needs. Ola, we've run out of time for this evening. From me, I loved it. There's loads of really interesting ideas there. And I'm looking forward to the next one. And I'd like to thank everybody who's been with us this evening. I didn't hear from Sherry, so I think we can wrap up.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, it's been great being with you guys. You have been a wonderful group, amazing interaction, and keep up your efforts, keep up your great work. You make all the difference, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.